Hi, my name is Maha, and I'm a realtor here in sunny Arizona. And a big question I get is, should I buy a home? Well, let's take a look. What is all involved? It is one of the biggest investments in your life. So if you're considering it, you have to really think about it carefully. It is a huge commitment. You do sign a 30-year usually mortgage. You can sign for less years, and people usually move before then, but still it is a commitment. And you have to see if you can do it. And where do you begin? So let's first take a look at renting versus buying. If you're going to be in a place for a year or you're unsure of where your future is going to take you, especially if you're a student or you're just moving new to a place and you're not familiar with the area, it may make sense to rent first. But let's take a look at that. So usually a rental of a two-bedroom or more, begins in this area, 1,000 to 1,200, depending on your location. If you're going to stay there a year, it's about 12,000 to 15,000 for the year. But then when you stay longer than a year and you're staying, after 3 years, then, the money that you're putting into the rental adds up. It could be anywhere from 40 to 45,000. And then if you rent more than 10 years, then, here you go. You have a lot of money that you're spending on rent that you could have been putting into your investments. Because renting, especially long term, you can't modify the interior of the home. If you want to paint, you have to ask for permission, or if you want to, of course, update the kitchen or the bathroom, it doesn't make sense because it's not your property to update. And there's usually pet restrictions. So if you want a big dog, you have to get approval, and sometimes they'll tell you no, depending on the breed. Rent increases happen yearly. You can't stop that. And sometimes you're told to leave because either the homeowner wants to come back to the home or wants to sell the home. So you really don't have much power in renting, and you don't walk away with anything when you do leave. So there's zero returns, if you see here on the last column. So let's take a look at, the market. I usually get the questions, how's the market? And basically, it's either a seller's market or a buyer's market. And what does that mean? Well, I always like to use the analogy of going to a movie theater and you're buying popcorn at the movie theater. How much is that, right? It's like $7. And if you're at a supermarket, you could get that very same popcorn for less than $1, probably. So who's got the buying power there? The seller, because he's the only one selling that house or that popcorn, and he could basically ask for whatever amount, and he has buyers. And so from a seller's point of view, when they have the power, the seller's market, that means that there are a few homes in the market to many buyers, and usually you can have a selection of buyers wanting to buy your home, so your price could be higher than market value in some instances. On the reverse side, and when it's a buyer's market, that means there are plenty of homes out there and very few buyers for the home. So you have to compete with your neighbors to get the buyer to buy your home. So when you take a look at the Phoenix market, we use Cromford, which is a great analytical system here to show us where we are at any current time. So if you take a look from 2001, this blue line here is when we have a balance of the market. So that would mean buyer to seller evens out. We have 100 homes and 100 buyers, and pretty much so we're going to sell in, whatever the inventory amount is set for that time. But if you take a look here in 2004, we had a really huge peak, and that was a seller's market. And so that means that there were few homes to many buyers, right? And then this is when, if you recall, if you were around during that time in 2006, 2007, 2008, we had the big financial crisis, right? And so the market dropped, and all of a sudden, people were losing their homes. And so here the buyers had the strength. And then, pretty much we were even from 2009. And then here we go. If you look in our current state, in 2020, you can see when COVID, the pandemic hit, pretty much we sort of dropped from January timeframe here in February, March, because we were basically on lockdown, right? But then we're still very much in a seller's market, right? We're all above the blue line, so that would be considered healthy. And when you see right now, as we're reporting in November timeframe, we have many buyers to a home. So the sellers are really, we're looking for people to sell their homes. People are holding on to their homes. It's a great market, so why not hold on to it? Because the projection is prices are still going to go up. So if you don't have to sell, people are not selling. So many buyers looking to outbid one another, and this is the kind of market that we're in today. So we're very much in a seller's market. And just, I wanted to highlight a movie here. I have no affiliations with it, but The Big Short does discuss the financial market here when it crashed in 2006, 2007, 2008, and so on. So that gives you more detail of exactly what happened. This was a false sense of a seller's market. It was just a big, crisis that happened back then. The second question I usually get is, how much do I have to pay you as an agent to help me buy a house? Well, just so you know, realtors are usually paid from the seller proceeds, so it doesn't cost the buyer anything. And, realtors are really your fiduciary, which means they have your back. They're going to make sure that, number one, they're going to find that great house that fits your needs and negotiate on your behalf. And when I say fiduciary, that means that you can share with them confidential information and they'll take it to their grave, okay? So you do have a confidant in a realtor, but just make sure that you do pick a realtor that knows what they're doing and has your back, because there are plenty of realtors out there. So it's always good to get someone who is recommended to you, from someone that you know and trust who trusts a realtor. Testimonials are really great, and realtors are really worth their weight in gold. They usually do get 3% on one side of the deal if you want to know technicalities, but it is always, commission is negotiable, and usually it does cost 6% total for the selling side and the buying side. But of course, sometimes the seller offers less, and sometimes they could offer more depending on what the property is, but they are definitely worth their weight in gold. Next, the question I get is it easy to get a mortgage? Well, I'm not a lender, but I do work very closely with lenders, so I can tell you right off the bat that credit score is key. If you take anything away from this presentation, it is to have a great credit score. So always know and always be mindful of your spending. Don't have too many credit cards, especially store cards. 1 or 2 cards maximum. And I'm not a financial analyst, I'm not advising you, but really my credit score is like in the 7s and sometimes in the 8s, because I tend to spend every month and pay off my balance of my credit card at the end of the month. And so I never pay interest rates, but it shows that I pay on time, and I set that on auto, and that just really boosts my credit score because I pay it on time, and it really, I get bonus points, right? So you have to pick your right credit card to either get money back or some frequent flyer miles or whatever that's important to you. And so having a great credit score, not just for buying a house, but just for everything else, even if you want to buy a car, the better your credit score, the lesser your interest rate. So someone who has a 500 credit score versus a 800 credit score, you'll see that the interest rate that they offer you for a mortgage is vastly different. So just be mindful of that, to always have a great credit score. But other than that, there's also, of course, income to debt ratio, which means that whatever income you're making, the debt that's going out, right? Your expenses are not at least half of what you're making. I mean, it depends. There's always like a 45%, 50%, or that's definitely a lender question, but that's just giving you the high level answer to that. Another question I get is, how much do I need for a down payment? Well, again, that's another lender question, but if you're a VA or a veteran, you could get a VA loan at 0%, and you don't even have to pay mortgage insurance. Mortgage insurance, it kicks in if you put less than 20% down. So my answer is always, it's good to have 20% down on a house that you're going to buy. So if you're going to buy a $300,000 house, you should have $60,000 for a down payment. But most people don't have $60,000. And so sometimes you could put as low as 3% if you're a first-time home buyer. So that would be $9,000. So that really is a good deal. But again, it's a lender question, and it's based on many variables, your income, your credit score, etc. And they will also let you know how much mortgage insurance you would have to pay if you're putting down less than 20%. And then, general question is, what is the home buying process? Well, like I said to you before, check your credit. And if you have zero credit, especially if you're a young adult, if you don't have credit cards, you probably have no credit. So if you want to start building your credit, that's a great thing. If you have a bad credit score, you probably would like to repair it. And sometimes it's as good as calling your creditors and seeing how best to clear some of the bad, late payments and such. And there are credit repair places out there to help you repair your credit. And then finding the lender. Now, mind you, if you do hire a realtor, I always help anyone who calls me to work on their credit and find the best lenders. Like I said, I work with many lenders. And you would get a mortgage pre-approval. You don't want to be looking at homes that are way out of your comfort zone, right? So if you want to just pay $1,800 or $1,500 a month, you're not going to be looking at $400,000, $500,000 homes. So you need to know exactly what your buying power is. And this is where it's key to talk to a mortgage lender who's going to look at your income and debt and credit, etc., and determine how much you can buy, your buying power, okay? And of course, finding a realtor. Now that's where I come in, or if you have another realtor, certainly they would definitely be the one to reach out to and say, hey, I'm ready to buy. And then, there's a lot of criteria out there, a lot of homes, especially in the Phoenix Metro Valley. And so we have to really be mindful of what it is that you like. Sometimes you can't get everything. The wish list is great, but depending on what you're approved for, what you're comfortable paying every month, and what's out there, we would have to work on your priority list and find you, a happy medium there. And then, once you shop for homes, then there's an opportunity to make an offer on a home and actually close on it. So that would be great. So, like I said, there's a lot of ways to look at homes. Today's homes, there's hardly any homes on the market. Like I said to you a couple of slides ago, there are just so many buyers and very few homes to pick from. But when the market picks up again, sometimes you could be looking at 8 to 10 homes, and you want to keep it straight in your mind. And so sometimes it's great to list each home in a priority level. If you like the interior, if you don't like the interior, and I usually like to, when I work with my buyers, after they see the home, list the key takeaways from that home. What did they love most about that home? What did they least, like about the home? If they had to give it a rating from 0 to 5, 5 being I'm ready to buy it, I'm ready to move into it, to 0, like I don't even want to walk through this house. We rate each house, and so that way when we refer back to it, we can manage our lists and our homes wisely and be able to not miss out on any great opportunities. So I wanted to give you a real life example, okay? Um, Here's a townhome in Phoenix, and uh, it was listed for 180,000, and it like the same day went into pending status, which means it had an offer and it was, now it's in escrow, somebody's buying it already. And if you can see, like sometimes you will get a list from your realtor that tells you what subdivision it's in, what year it was built, how many bedrooms and bathrooms, and what the approximate square footage is. And here's price per square foot, and if there's an HOA fee. Now, for people that are not familiar with HOA, that's a homeowners association, and they basically take care of the common areas. Sometimes they would have common water or a pool, some facilities, maybe even tennis courts, depending on what the community has. And so this particular community has one pool and common area, and that's what and also takes care of the roof. Okay, so that's good. So everybody pays 180 monthly in this community, and the taxes for the year are $445 according to this MLS listing. So let's take a look at what that means. If you like this house, right, let's say you want to put 20% down. So 20% down on 180, like we discussed before, is $36,000. And interest rates, I just closed on a deal at 2.5%. That was wild. I have not seen any interest rates in the twos, never mind 2.5%. But again, like I said, if you have great credit score, if you have great lender, and income to debt, and a lot of these different variables, I'll help you get the best rate with the best lender. Because really rates make or break you. It gives you a lot more affordability. So, at 2.5, you could buy a lot more home for your buck than when the rates were at 5%. And that's another discussion for another day. We could certainly talk about that if you're interested. But in this example, and this is a real life example, 20% down is 36,000, right? At 2.5%, with the remaining balance is what they're going to get the mortgage amount for, 144,000. And for 30 years, you could certainly make it 15 years, 20 years, or even do an adjustable rate mortgage. But again, this is outside the scope of this presentation, just giving you a scenario here. Now, if you notice, taxes here say $700, whereas in the listing it says $445. So sometimes it's not reported correctly. So you have to really be sure. I know we're talking peanuts here, 445 to 700, but some areas it could make a drastic difference. So we need to know what the taxes are, because that is a variable amount that changes year to year. So for this year, it's $700 for the year, still very good. And insurance, again, depending on who you use for insurance, depending if you use, an umbrella policy. Now you can use the same insurance company that has your cars, and they would probably give you a good deal. But on average, you can say a townhome like this would be $800 for the year. This is, home insurance. God forbid something happens, a fire or something like a big flood or whatever the case may be. Mortgage companies definitely need for you to insure the home, to insure their money, right, that they loan you. And it's good to always have home insurance. And here's that HOA again that we discussed, 180 for the common areas in the pool, etc. And this, because they are putting a 20% down payment, they're not paying any PMI, which is property mortgage insurance, and other costs. It could be other costs, but for now it's zero. So if you take a look, you sometimes hear this term PITI or PITI, principal and interest, and I highlighted that. Principal and interest are up there, and then taxes and insurance are the remainder of this PITI acronym. And so adding that with the HOA comes to a monthly payment of $873. Now, I could tell you right off the bat, this particular townhome rents for $1,200 a month. So if you bought this and you have a mortgage of $873 and you can rent it out for $1,200, you can make a good $300 a month. Yeah, fine, you could put it in reserve and there's different expenses, etc. But all in all, it certainly pays for itself. It's much cheaper than a rental. If you were going to rent this, it would be $1,200 versus your $873. Now, I wanted to also give you another example. If interest rate was 3.5, again, these are all very small amounts. It really makes a difference when we're talking about a bigger house, a bigger amount. But for 3.5%, you could see that the monthly payment is almost $100 more a month. Okay, that was the only thing that I changed here in the example. Now, this particular, oops, oh, I did want to, I just put this over here so you can see that the difference in rent versus buy. So here, I wanted to show you this particular history of the home. We did show you that cyclical chart before, how the market goes up and down, like in 2006 when, in 2007 when it crashed, etc. This particular townhome in 1991 sold for $492,000. Do you see that? Then 1999 sold for $340,000, and the mortgage, they put $107,000 down, and they took a mortgage out. But then they lost pretty big when they sold in 2003 at $81,000, and then that was a little blip, I think, when we had the dot-com issue. If you were around back then, I don't know, but sometimes, when the market goes up and down, it really is our economic, it depends on how we're doing in the rest of the world. And then 2006, they sold it for 146, so they did pretty good in 3 years, right? They made, $60,000 or whatever, 50-something thousand dollars, so that's good. And then in 2016, they sold it for $110,000. And if you could see on the right side there, it was a short sale. Now, the short, that big short that I movie, you would understand what short sale is if you're not familiar with that term. So in 2016, the current seller bought it for $110,000. And what is the price that they're selling it for? $180,000 up there. So in 4 years, the equity has grown to $70,000. So it's really good to buy and know when to sell or when to hold, and that is really building your wealth. Okay, it's from a rental point of view, you really can't beat that, especially in a Phoenix market like this. It's so good to be a homeowner. So let's continue. So just wanted to give you a chart. This is from Security Title. It just basically talks about once you find a home and have an offer that's accepted, what the process is. Okay, life of an escrow. So you as a buyer, select the realtor, you get pre-approved, you find homes, you select homes and submit a contract with loan status report, right? And then the seller accepts your offer, and then escrow is opened with the escrow company / title company. And then we do an inspection on the home to make sure that you have a good home, that there's nothing that you have to take care of. And sometimes we go back to the seller and renegotiate any issues that we find. And really, homes that you're buying, especially resale homes, are as is, with the exception of 5 key items. And that would be roof, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and structure. So if there's something wrong with the HVAC system, it's not functional, or the roof is leaking and needs to be redone, or there's, God forbid, some structural issue, that's when you go back to the seller, and sometimes they're not even aware of the issue, and we work it out. And that's where your realtor is key in helping you navigate this whole process. And then you get your appraisal done to make sure that the house is worth what you're paying for it, and then they do a title commitment to make sure that there's no liens against the house, that you're buying it free and clear. And then you basically just get your loan all completed, and you close on the house and it's yours. So it's a very smooth process when you're working with someone who knows what they're doing, and you can really own a home within 30 to 45 days after you're finding it. And if you have cash, sometimes you could even close as sooner as 10 days. So it all depends. From beginning to end, the life of an escrow is usually 30 to 45 days. So that's basically all I have for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me at 45, oops, I don't even have my right number, 480-529-0938, or you could certainly email me, or just go to my website, soldbythebest.com. If I would have said sold by Maha, people wouldn't remember that because my name is unique. So just think of soldbythebest.com to take a look at homes, to reach out to me. I will be happy to answer any questions that you have. I hope you found this presentation useful, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye.